Adventure Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Oh, boy. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Here we are back at Intersect Radio. It's been a while. I've been out with some friends of mine playing music and hanging out. So I had to take a month off and just do stuff from the archives. Hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for tuning in today. And that music you heard just now was a little excerpt from my guest for today. And before we get started with Sean, I just want to read what one critic has said about him. I like this. It says, Sean Michel is a black soul singer in a long-bearded white man's body. Pregnant pause. He mixes passionate, soulful vocals with screaming electric slide guitar and then lights himself on fire for the world to watch him burn. He has toured the world, captivating audiences in every culture with his spiritualized performances that cut right to the soul of anyone who hears. His songs attack the evils in the world, but also offer hope, simultaneously piercing the heart while uplifting the spirit. And I would agree to all that. I've seen the man in action. I've seen him in this little rehearsal room in action. And it's like he's performing for 10,000 people in that little rehearsal space. So if you guys get a chance, you got to come see my man, Sean Michel. And today I'm going to introduce you to him, and hopefully he's going to introduce himself to us, tell us his life story, and then we're going to get around to the music he's making today and just what's going on. So without further ado, would you please welcome my guest today, Sean Michel. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Thanks for the flattering words. That was humbling.
A black man in a white man's body. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually try to picture a large black woman inside of a small white man with a long beard.
That's even better.
But Yeah.
That's even better. So, man, tell us. We want to start from the beginning. Tell us about yourself. Growing up in New Orleans, born in New Orleans, growing up in New Orleans, and now you're in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's quite a trek. And so tell us,
man,
how you start.
My mama birthed me, man, on the mouth of the Mississippi down there in New Orleans. In 1979, August 21st, I'm a Leo, if anybody's interested in that stuff. And, man, I grew up in southern Louisiana as a kid, Baton Rouge area, New Orleans area. And, I was in both of those areas pretty much all the time. And, I grew up with a really strong, family. My extended family even was really great, being around. People from New Orleans are pretty crazy people, man, just in general. But it's like a good crazy, like a lot of partying, a lot of music, a lot of good food, a lot of soul, it's just oozing all down there, man. And I got to grow up in that, and be around that every weekend and every summer when I'd be down in New Orleans, visiting my grandparents. And occasionally, a couple of times when I was a kid, I actually got to my family made their own what they call truck floats, and we were in a couple parades. We had costumes. They spent all year like making these floats and costumes, man, and I would just be 5, 6, 7-year-old kid on these floats just chunking beads at thousands of people, man, during Mardi Gras. And so I got to experience a lot of like unique and crazy things. And, you take those things for granted as a kid, but, I think a lot of those things and the culture down there, it gets in you, and it's a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that has something to do with definitely a huge part of my journey, and what God has instilled in me, since I was a little kid. But but yeah, man, it was a cool ride being down in New Orleans, and I get down there any chance I can throughout the year, just because in a lot of ways, it serves as like a recharge, button when I go down there and just hang out in the French Quarter and see these second line jazz bands forming in the middle of the street, and I'll just start dancing with them, man. And it's, I need those times, honestly, man. I need that art, and just get refilled every once in a while.
Yeah. There's a lot of big black women down there too during that time. So that's probably where you got your inspiration from.
Well, Arkansas has that too, man. There's an old blues cat named C.Dale Davis, and he's got a song that says, if you like fat women, come to Pine Bluff, Arkansas. They got the fattest women any place I ever saw. And so there's probably the fat black women here too that influenced me quite a bit. But
yeah. So did you spend a lot of time in church as a kid?
Say that again?
Did you spend a lot of time in church as a kid?
Yeah, man, I had a weird, really kind of interesting spiritual upbringing, if you will. My dad was like an atheist until I was a senior in high school, but my mother, she I guess, became a Christian, was saved, born again, whatever terminology you want to use, when I was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and she became a Christian at Jimmy Swaggart's church down in Baton Rouge, like during his, he was like the Joel Osteen back then, before he got busted with some stuff in the media. But like she was a part of this mega church, and so I remember growing up as a really young kid, I have vague memories of her taking me to these like what they would call like small group Bible studies and prayer times. And it was very charismatic, and Pentecostal, obviously. And, when I was like 5 or 6, I think, at one of these small group Bible studies, I saw a demon exorcism, like inside this guy's house. And I'm 5, 6 years old, and I'm freaking out. My older brother was like 12 at the time. And we both like slept in my mom's bed that night because we were just like the Exorcist movie was like happening in real life, real time in front of me. And it really freaked me out, man. And, like I didn't know how to process any of that or what any of that meant. And, but my grandparents down in New Orleans, they were like strict Roman Catholic. And so I also grew up going to mass with them. So I had a little bit of high church, a little bit of, the crazy charismatic stuff. And, so as a kid, that was a lot of my upbringing, My mom dragged me to church. I didn't want to go as a kid. But for some reason, she never made my brother go to church. And I didn't find out till much later, like 25 years down the road, why she always dragged me to church, and not my brother. But anyway,
what was the reason for that? Did you ever find out?
Yeah.
Did you ever find out what was the reason?
Yeah, she told me later on, like after, I guess God had allowed me to get a certain notoriety through the music and stuff. She told me that she said she heard God tell her, and she told me audibly. She's like, I've only heard God speak audibly like 2 times, which most people never hear him once, but she was like, I heard him tell me that you were his and that he's going to use you for his work. And so I guess because she heard that when I was a little kid, she just felt the necessity to bring me to church, and to have me in places like that. I guess she thought that was part of her deal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like a Samuel experience.
Yeah, very similar to that. And so, like I said, I guess she felt the responsibility to, like, I gotta bring my youngest boy to church every time I'm there. And I didn't really like it, as a kid, and but I couldn't do anything about it. My mom was making me. So.
Yeah. Did you sing or anything at church?
Man, the only thing I remember as a kid, I sang once in a church program thing. I think it was about Christmas, and that's the only time I really remember singing in public. I was very much a ham, as my parents would call it, as a kid. Like I danced in front of people, and I would do things like that. But as far as like on a stage in front of people, I was pretty shy about that stuff. But I did around certain groups of people. I would just act out and just get to break dancing. Or I grew up with a lot of like black kids in my school when I was a kid, and I was heavily influenced by black culture, which I think a lot of white people in the 80s were heavily influenced by black culture. But anyway, I loved breakdancing. I loved like rapping, and I loved listening to like black American music, and that was always what I tried to like imitate when I was a kid.
So you can rap too?
I could when I was a kid. I don't know about much now, but I might be able to throw a few verses out now and again.
Okay. Let's improvise.
Huh?
Let's improvise. Go.
Oh, you calling me on the spot?
Yes.
All right, let me break one out real quick. Listen, okay. I heard real men ain't supposed to cry, but I know Jesus wept. So if you see my face ain't dry, looks like I'm only keeping a step. When my Savior don't need gold stars for good behavior, God's amazing grace is how I'm saved. It's the only way I walk in favor. He's all the goodness is redeemed, rest will ever need. When troubles come, Lord, restore my broken memory. Bring it on back all the good things you've given me. Every single breath is a gift as you shower down daily blessings. You is good, and that won't ever change. You is love, it keeps me from going insane. You take my heartbreaks and turn them into eternal gain. You take my heartbreaks and turn them into eternal gain.
That's pretty good, man.
Thanks.
That was improv, right?
Not completely improv.
That was
yeah. That was unrehearsed.
That was unrehearsed, yeah. That's pretty cool. I told somebody the other day that you could rap. I was just testing you. I wanted the audience to hear you rap, To say you can rap is one thing, but to actually do it and be heard, that's a whole nother thing. That's proof positive.
I can't wait, man, until I get the opportunity to do a hip-hop album, honestly. Mix some of that dirty old blues with some hip-hop. That's always a good combination.
Yeah, it is. It is. So let's get back to New Orleans. All right?
Yeah.
You stay in New Orleans until how long? When do you go to Arkansas, and how does that come about?
Yeah, I went to Arkansas about when I was starting junior high school, and I was 14. And my dad's job, he had a transfer, and so we moved up to Little Rock, and that was the first time I'd ever moved, which was really kind of tripping me out because I was so tightly knit with, my family and my extended family too. Down in New Orleans, because we did a lot. I mean, we were a big family. We would gather around for New Year's Eve and pop fireworks, 4th of July. I mean, we were, always, and then that stuff was kind of ended, moving up a little further on down to Mississippi and further up, I should say. And I just got transferred up here, because of my dad's work. But it ended up being like a really, really definitely like a God thing, you know, because a lot of
In what
interesting
way?
changes.
In what way?
Well, yeah, well, for me, it was like, that was kind of a turning point for me as far as like spiritually, you know, like I said before, I didn't really like going to church or being a part of that scene, but I would go, you know, cause I didn't want to disappoint my mom. But towards the tail end of me moving to Arkansas was when I actually started my journey as, you know, becoming a believer. And, I was probably about 13, 14, and then, moved up here and got involved in a youth program for teenagers, you know, and, you know, at that point in time, I started to become a lot more like dedicated, in, you know, reading about Jesus' life, studying his teachings. And, it had a massive impact on me, at a pretty early age, you know, and it was changing a lot of things about myself and the way I viewed the world and the way I viewed myself. And, you know, also a couple, 2-3 years into us moving to Arkansas, my dad, who was an atheist, staunch atheist for years, he finally, had an extreme conversion experience, here in Arkansas. And, you know, he's never been the same since then. And so, you know, there was a lot of changing of the guard, you know, just moving up to Arkansas. And I think God was using those times to, begin to shape and mold me for something bigger down the road, you know, and something that was bigger than myself even, you know. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. He has a way of doing that sort of stuff, doesn't he? Unbeknownst to us at the time. But
yeah, and I think
hold that thought right there, Sean. We're going to come back to that spot in your life, but right now we're going to get ready for a commercial break. And I want to just thank you for being on the show today. Thanks everybody who's listening. Big shout out to Jay Newman and to Harry Gore, Dave Ravin-Sandapier. All cool people. We'll be right back, folks.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
The Moyer Entertainment Group, in conjunction with ProMark, Dunlop, and Deadline Media, is keeping music in our local schools and presenting local talent to the world through the Temecula Valley Music Awards. Submissions for entry into the TVMA 2017 season are now open in all genres, including a youth category for artists under 18 for the October 7th Star-Studded Awards Show, where 100% of the proceeds go towards supporting local music education in the Temecula Valley. Details, tvmawards.org.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
You don't know, 'cause you weren't there. You don't know when, you don't know where. You don't know what the Lord has done for me.
That's a little excerpt from my guest today, Mr. Sean Michel. And just before the break, Sean, you were telling us about your father's conversion, which seems to be a pretty big life changer for you.
Yeah, it was a pretty big ordeal and kind of weird at the same time, because my father and I, a couple 2 to 3 years up to his conversion, we had a lot of tension in our relationship. I loved my dad, but my dad also, he didn't want to have anything to do with God, period, or church for sure. And, God was doing a lot of changing in my life. And I'd want to tell my dad about it. I wasn't necessarily trying to convert my dad or anything like that. I was just trying to share things from my life and things that I was excited about. And, that ended up causing a lot of tension in our relationship. And for a while, my dad just didn't really want to have much to do with me. And it's kind of understandable, and we got in some pretty big fights because of it. And, I just told my father, I was like, look, man, I'm not going to talk to you anymore about God or anything like that. I just want you to know that I love you, and I want you to know that God loves you. And, then I just tried to live right around my dad and just try to be obedient, and be a good son. And around that time, Promise Keepers was like a huge thing in America. And somebody at my church kind of tricked my dad into going. But I mean, he wanted him to go, but he didn't know if he was going to be able to make it. So he gave my dad his spot, and but he ended up being able to make it. And so anyway, my dad was there at Promise Keepers, man, and God just did an amazing work in his life. And he was kind of radically, some people call it radically saved, and that was my dad, man, because he was so anti in a lot of ways. And he just broke down, man. And I remember 3 years before that happened, I would pray a lot, and I would talk to God about it. And I'd be like, God, I want my dad to know you, but you're going to have to bring him all the way. I mean, I don't want this kind of 20-80 devotion. If he's going to know you, I want him to really know you all the way. And God definitely answered through on that prayer, and he's never been the same since. He's been leading prison Bible studies for 10 years, and he's had his hands in a lot of ministry opportunities. So that really changed me, and it was kind of weird because my dad was literally one way one day, and then the next day he was completely different. Didn't want to have anything to do with God, and then the next day he's telling people he loved Jesus, and I was just like, wait, God, I thought I wanted this to happen, but this is kind of weird now because my dad was completely different. And it took a minute for me to get used to that, but yeah, it was a radical thing for me, man. It tripped me out. But anyway, God answered prayers there for sure.
So what was the Promise Keeper experience like?
We were in Memphis, 1996, and there was we were at the Liberty Bowl there. It's a big stadium, and 60,000 men were there, and it was really weird, man, because I saw my dad reading. They gave everybody these New Testaments, for free. Mm-hmm. And we were in the hotel room the first night, and he was reading this Bible in the hotel room. And I was just like, what? In my mind, I'm like, oh, this is really trippy, man. Cause my dad literally didn't want to have anything to do with any of that stuff. And then the next day, they had real powerful, what they call worship music, and the Vineyard band was up there playing, and I think Shout to the Lord, or You Came from Heaven to Earth. I can't remember if that's the same song or what, but anyway, it's a big worship song in the day, and all these 60,000 men started singing that together, and they all grabbed each other's hands and raised them in the air, like almost like a war cry, you know? And I look, and my dad's like, has his hands in the air, and he's singing, and I'm just like tripping out. I'm like, this is not my dad, you know? And I was even crying, you know, because I was like, what is going on here, God? And he was answering my prayer the whole time, but I still didn't believe it was like kind of happening, you know? And then we came home from that experience, and my dad just broke down, and he went to church that Sunday morning and confessed to the church that he wanted to follow Jesus, and, you know, he got baptized and all this stuff, and my dad broke down, like was crying, which my dad did not do that. My dad didn't really ever cry. And that was a big thing for me too. And then he told me that, you know, later he was just like, man, I realized that my pride was insignificant to the power of God that I needed in my life. And I'd just been living in pride this whole time, and I was just ready to let that go. And it was very cool, man. Yeah, and that happened my senior year in high school. And so it really transformed me too, because, you know, now I had this father, earthly father that I respected. My dad had a lot of wisdom, earthly wisdom. And now it was kind of like all converted. And it was not just earthly wisdom now, but my dad had heavenly wisdom, you know, and he helped me a lot early on in college. And just to kind of, I could talk to my dad now about struggles I was having spiritually, and even doubts, which was weird because I struggled with doubt a lot. I didn't know if I really knew God. I didn't know if I was saved or whatever you want to call it. And I struggled a lot with that, and it would wreck me, man. And my dad, my dad was able to walk me through some of that, which was odd for him, because he told me later, he was like, I was always jealous of your faith. That's why I got so mad at you all the time, because I wanted to believe like that. And so it was kind of weird for him to see me struggling to believe, you know, so it was a weird turn of events. But
and it's also interesting how he ministered to you, you know?
Yeah.
After all those years of you praying for him, and now he's converted, he's saved, and you've been the rock, and now you go to him and confess your doubts and any unbeliefs, and he ministers to you and pulls you out of that. That's quite a story there. You know how the coin flipped.
Yeah, and maybe that was the thing. Maybe I was trying to be strong for so long, and then when it did kind of happen, I just kind of broke down, and, you know, and I do believe God used him in my life, definitely in that point, in a weird way, because it was just weird how, like, he was just a very newborn believer, if you want to call it that, but somehow he just knew all the right things to say, you know what I'm saying, that I needed to hear. And so, man, God works in mysterious ways like that. Yeah,
and his earthly wisdom too. You know, there's a lot to be said about having earthly wisdom. You know, and coupled with spiritual wisdom, you know, it's pretty dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're very fortunate to have him. So
I was blessed with two really good parents.
When did you start writing songs?
Around that same time. You know, in high school, I was singing since I was a kid, and like I said, was kind of like an entertainer, I guess. But I was just trying to get people to look at me, and I was just being stupid and silly. And I was going to sing. I actually joined choir in high school just to try it out. And on the first or second day there, I hit a really sour note vocally. And everybody just kind of like looked at me and gave me this look like, what do you think you're doing? Like, you don't know what you're doing kind of thing. and it really tripped me out. And so I quit choir like after the second day, and I went and tried to play basketball. Wasn't good at that either. So I don't even remember where I ended up landing. But so like, you know, I just would, if I did music, I did it by myself, basically. And my senior year in high school, or my junior year actually in high school, I had a really close friend of mine named Stephen Tucker, and he started learning guitar. And his dad, Howard, who's like a second father to me, showed Stephen like 4 or 5 chords on the guitar. And Stephen had these super long fingers. I mean, he could stretch it almost like 12 fretboards on a guitar. I mean, like, dude's fingers were like insane. And he didn't have a whole lot of friends at that point. It was mainly just he and I were good friends. So when he got home from school, he would practice his guitar in his room for like 5-6 hours until he'd go to bed. And within like 2 or 3 months, this dude was insane on the guitar. And I was just like, what? And so in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe it's that easy for everybody, you know? And the way he played it wasn't just that he played guitar. It was the way he played it. He was the best I'd ever seen in person. And he just had this touch with the guitar, with the fretboard. And he knew how to do things with the notes and bending things that I was just like, man, it was blowing my mind, you know, being 16, 17 years old. And so I asked Stephen's dad, you know, Howard, I was like, hey, could you show me some stuff on the guitar? And he showed me the same 3 chords. I just used those 3 chords for like years. I never really progressed as fast as my friend Stephen did. But he gave me a guitar too. It was an old Yamaha classical guitar from like the 70s. And he let me take it home, and he was just like, work on those chords, you know. And so then I just sat at home like trying to move my sausage, and I got really short sausage-like fingers, you know. So it was really difficult to move on this big, huge classical fretboard. And but it really taught me how to stretch my fingers. And now I only need 3 or 4 chords, but now I could like put melodies. You know, before I would just sing from my head, you know, melodies. And now I was like, oh, this is like a whole new world, because I was like, dude, I could actually put music and sing over actual music that I'm playing. Like, that was totally new to me and revolutionized things for me, because I didn't have to depend on someone else to make the music. You know, I could just make it from my head. And, I mean, it took a long time to get to that point, obviously, because I had to learn how to play the guitar. But that was a starting point for me, was in high school. And we started a band together, Stephen and I did, and a couple other friends. And it was more rock and roll, because that's what they played. And when I was a kid, I called rock and roll white people music. I had no respect for it. Like, I listened to black music, and I thought black music was much superior than any other form of music. And so I didn't like white people music. But being in that band really forced me to realize how foolish that was, and break out of that, and began to listen to more rock and roll, and get Nirvana and all that stuff, what they were listening to, and try to get into that realm, because they wanted me to sing in this band. And because I was the only one that really had a decent voice, and that's how that all started. And around that time, my senior year in high school, was when I wrote my first handful of songs.
What were they about?
They were cheesy, man. They were really cheesy songs, but they were all about faith and struggling with. Sometimes it was struggling with doubt, struggling with just the concept of sin, doing these things I don't want to do, but I'm drawn to them, you know, and the tension there. And, you know, a lot of it was about the love of God and the love of Jesus for humanity. And so basically everything that was inside of me spiritually was like coming out musically in form, you know, and I think I didn't realize this at the time, but, you know, I would hope every great artist is like that, you know. It's like whoever you are should come out, you know, basically. You should bear the fruit of who you are artistically. And so, you know, that's what I was doing.
So you never wrote any like cheesy love songs or anything like that?
Never did. I never could, actually. I don't know why, but I guess my love was seated in something much different. You know, I think my love and what I was learning about love was, which I was horrible at it, first of all, and still am. And but what I was learning about love was more the love of God. And I think all the love songs with girls and stuff, I mean, to be honest, that's all, if you trace it back far enough, it's rooted into the same thing. But I wasn't really talking about the leaves. I was talking more about the roots, you know, of the tree.
Mm-hmm. So you guys,
anyway,
you guys were doing covers in your band, pretty much?
No, not when I was a kid. No, we were just doing all originals. I don't think we even knew how to play a cover. So it was all just songs that we had written. Yeah, I didn't start doing covers until, probably more into college, after college. So I spent the first, 6-7 years that I was playing music, I spent it just writing stuff and playing what I was writing, which I don't know if it was necessarily good stuff, but you know what I'm saying? I was just playing the stuff that I was writing. And, so yeah, initially I wasn't really doing covers.
you guys were doing original sort of like, rock gospel tunes in your first band? Yeah, that's a good word for it, rock gospel.
But yeah, and it was, initially it was rock and roll music that they were influenced by, because I wasn't playing guitar yet in front of people. I was just playing it by myself. So I just did the singing. So, they were influenced by like Stone Temple Pilots and, that kind of stuff. And so, that was the music that was being made. And then I was writing the lyrics, over the music.
Cool, man. That's good. Usually people start off just the other way around, playing covers, playing in bands, and then writing their own songs usually.
Well, in some ways, I wish Yeah, in some ways, I wish that.
we gotta go. Hold that thought. I hear that music again. Thanks, folks. Hang in there. We'll be right back. Shout out to all the people who went on the Jesus Freak Cruise. Woo!
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
When my Lord comes back around, I'm going down, 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 down in the sober ground.
So, welcome back, everybody. Sean, are you there?
Yeah.
Good, man. I was thinking about what you were telling us just before the break. That's a pretty interesting journey there, you know, how you got started in music and the way you started. So I'm curious. I know you have a really close friend here in Nashville, and you guys have been through a lot of stuff together musically, you know, and he's acting as your agent and manager, and so he's very involved in your musical career. And I understand you guys have been together a very long time, so tell us about that relationship and how it kind of moved with you in college and to how it's helped you in
well, I hope you don't mind me sharing this story.
Stuff.
We were basically at a Christian youth summer camp kind of thing. I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. And my friends and I that I was in a band with, we played a song there that week. And the guy who was leading the music, I'd heard there was like a talent something there. And so I'd written a song with my friends in case that was the case. You know, I thought, hey, why don't we just play a song? And then I found out like it wasn't going to happen. And so I was like, well, I was kind of bummed out because I'd worked on this song, and I thought it was like at that point in time in my life, it was probably one of my better that I'd written. And so I'd asked the music dude, like, hey, can my friends and I play a song? He was like, well, let me hear it. You know, I'll let you know. And I guess if it sucked, he wasn't going to let me play it, you know. So I showed him the song, and he really dug it. So he let my friends and I get up on stage and play it. And then when we got through playing, my friend Jay, he comes up to me, and he was like, hey, man, I write poetry. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, man. And he was like, man, we should write some songs together sometime. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I just met the guy like the day before. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, we'll write some songs together. Like get with my people will call you kind of thing. And
some poetry.
And that was it, you know. Yeah, poetry. I was like, I don't want to play poetry. That sucks. But anyway, no. And it was weird because that was pretty much it. That was the extent of our interaction at this camp. And then later that summer was his first time to ever go to Cornerstone Music Festival in Bushnell, Illinois. And that's when like Cornerstone was huge. It was like 50,000 people. And he ends up camping out of 50,000 people. He ends up camping out next to the two guys that were in the band with me that played that song with me. So he knew who they were.
Oh, wow.
And then and then they ended up building this friendship over the week. And come to find out he was going to the same university I was going to. And so we entered the same university, one of my friends from the band and Jay, and we started college in 1997, a little place called Ouachita Baptist University. And we ended up building a friendship from that, you know, from this little experience of him hearing this one song. And I don't think we ever wrote a song together until like much later, which was kind of interesting. I mean, he had mentioned that, but he never like pushed that on me. You know what I'm saying? He just
he never showed you his work.
Huh?
He never showed you his work, his poetry.
No. And he was an English minor. I mean, the dude was writing poetry, you know, and he was reading a lot. And he was good with we all knew he was a wordsmith. We all knew he was good with words, and the dude was highly intelligent. But as far as like songwriting, you know, we were all like musical buddies. Like we all hung out in the same circles. And actually Jay ended up starting to promote shows at the university. So that kind of became his niche, you know, like he would organize these concerts, man, and they were usually they were successful, you know, and it was and so he was giving us outlets to play this music, which was a very cool thing, man. And he started doing that, and then eventually, you know, we were friends throughout college, and then eventually we went on a trip overseas together to Africa, where we did some like mission work over there, and that was when he and I became like, you know, thick as thieves, you know what I'm saying? Like that was kind of like our teamwork working together. And his visionary skills, and then my whatever music skills I had at the time, you know. And so anyway, that's kind of how that all started.
Cool, man. And you guys are still hanging out. He's still your manager, correct? You haven't fired him yet?
No, not yet. Pretty close. He's quit almost a couple times, but I'm kind of hard to deal with, you know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't so far as to say I'm a diva, but all my friends would call me that.
Okay. You know, most creative people are, most creative people have a thing, you know. They have a little quirk. Yeah. But so did you graduate from college? Did you spend 4 years at the university?
I actually spent 4.5 and graduated, and I think Jay spent 5. I don't know how I squeaked out of there faster than he did, but he's a lot smarter than me. But anyway, I graduated in 4.5, and that was after I graduated was when Jay and I first we headed out overseas, and that was not the last time we headed overseas together. We actually been trekking a lot of continents since then. But in 2002 was the first time we did that, and music was a huge part in that process there. So that was kind of cool how that worked out.
What did you get your degree in?
I was a major in biblical studies, and I was a minor in studio art, visual arts. Both of my degrees were in things that you can't really make money in. So, that was basically my track study. But the cool thing is I had no idea that like my biblical studies degree was going to heavily influence the way that, like the way I write music, and kind of the reasoning behind it and the way I write lyrics, honestly. So I didn't do music in school or anything like that.
But your guitar playing seemed to keep progressing. And were you guys, when you and Jay went over to Africa, was that a music thing or just as volunteer missionary sort of?
Yeah, it was volunteer. It was volunteer thing. And like what I meant was I didn't study music in college. I was playing it in college and writing newer stuff. And so that's kind of what happened. We Jay and a couple other people organized this trip to Africa to work with teenagers over there for a summer. And I've been writing songs and playing these songs in little areas around town in college. And Jay was like, "Hey man, we need to raise some money, you know, to go over to Africa." And I was like, "All right, what you want? You want to sell some cookies or something? Like, what are we going to do here?" And he was like, "Well, you got these songs you've written. Let's make a CD, and we'll sell these CDs on campus, man." And you know, and I was just like, "Okay." You know, I mean, I'd never really recorded much music before then, and I had a good friend by the name of Mark Simmons. He let me. This was back before Pro Tools was around, you know, and he had this like little rolling digital recording station, and it took us a couple months, man, and he did it all for free, you know, to help us out. And I got a lot of my musician friends together, and we made this really like It was more acoustic-y, but had I played all the hand percussion on it, and it was mainly hand percussion and acoustic guitars, and we had some cello in there and some stuff like that. And it was all these songs that I'd written. And we called it Portraits, and because each of the songs are kind of like a little mini portrait of Jesus and his life in some form or fashion. And not near as good as Rich Mullins' Jesus record, but it's getting close to that. But anyway, we made this little portraits record, and Jay, just learned how to. He's like, all right, I'll do the graphic design, and I'm just like, what is graphic design? And he's like, all right, I'm going to get these CDs printed, and I was like, what's a CD? And basically, he just did all the groundwork for that, and then we sold them on campus, man, and we made enough money for him and I to fly to Africa, and I think we even helped out a couple of other people who were going. And so,
right.
Yeah, that was probably my biggest selling CD. But
and you sold them all on campus?
Yeah, mainly, and friends and family. But at that point in time, I don't know. I guess people on campus thought I knew what I was doing musically, and so they were very interested in seeing what the CD would sound like. And so I guess that was kind of the deal there. And we got to go to Africa and do the work. And actually, the trip, we did play music there. That wasn't the main reason we went, but it was definitely a part of the trip. And Jay actually played all the hand percussion for me. So he was playing djembe and stuff. So I don't know if he's told you that, Aaron, but he's pretty good at that old hand drum.
He's been holding out on me, huh?
Hey, I'm
going to put him to the test.
But he did have dreads back then, and he's cut his dreads off, so he probably lost all that power he had with the dreads.
Yeah,
but
his Samson rhythm is gone. It's fleed from him.
It's gone. It ain't there no more. Oh, crap. But anyway, yeah, man, we did that trip. And then soon after that, we had a friend in China who needed our help, and we were going to do some trekking up in the Himalayas, foothills of the Himalayas. And
really,
again, we needed, he was doing some work out there with some villages and stuff up in the mountains. And we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into physically, because that was one of the most horrifying, taxing trips of my life. And hiking up all these big, huge mountains. And Jay, again, was like, hey, dude, let's try to sell some more CDs, man. So we just, at that point, we had gone to several places and would play and would speak about what we were going to do in China. And we sold enough, to pay our way there. So it was kind of interesting. Like, we were really just trying to raise money for things that were volunteer, things. And we needed venues to share about those trips and stuff. And so I got to play the music, and we got to sell CDs. And so that was kind of how things got started at first, between Jay and I, doing the music thing.
That's cool. That's cool, man. That's a great pairing, you guys together, doing these great things. Pretty adventurous, too, going to all these exotic places around the world to spread the gospel. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, it was interesting.
What was the main motivation? When did it just kick in that you were going to just do this as a career move now?
Well, it was kind of different timings for Jay and I. Like, for Jay, I think it was more, because for me, I was just doing the music. I mean, that's what I enjoyed doing, and that's what I enjoyed playing. And, I had seen the way it affected people when I would play, and not to say anything about me, like, oh, I'm something bigger than life or anything like that. But I don't know, man. It was just weird. I guess God had given me an ability to just kind of, there's some artists out there. They just, when they're going to play, they're going to lay it all out, and they're just going to bare their soul open, and it affects people, man. I mean, music is a very powerful tool, and the audience connects with the artist when they do that. And so I had experienced that a couple times in college, where I'd performed something in front of people and no one clapped when I was done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, oh, this guy sucks. There wasn't any boos, but it was like you could hear a pin drop in there. And I think I would like open my eyes because I was in this other place, this other realm in the middle of a song. And then I'd open my eyes and everybody was just like, what just happened? You know? And I just remember thinking like, oh, dang, you know, with much power comes much responsibility kind of thing, I guess is what I was feeling. And I was like, dude, I hope I can do this all the time when I play. I want this to, you know, help people. I want it to speak to people. You know, I want it to take them to places where I was being taken, you know, and transporting me there. And so,
well, let me cut you off right there, Sean. We're running out of time, folks, but Sean is going to be back here next week, and we'll take it up from here. And thank you all for listening. Sean, thank you for being on the show. See you later.
From Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.